take your protein pills. The Poisoned Electrick Head story. Brian Carney.
Chapter 39. 8 Little Indians. Newton Festival was a local event on the outskirts of town, at which everyone could rely on meeting everyone else and getting pleasantly shit-faced together, often in blistering sunshine. The kind of socially uplifting experience that answers a basic human need, and one that our continental cousins understand, defend and hold dear. The first hint of hot weather calls to people at a primeval level, reminding them they're alive. And they can no less resist the call than can the salmon on its inexplicable journey upstream. Trouble is, this balmy loosening of shackles sits very uncomfortably with the English psyche, the establishment feeling more securely moored in damp and drizzle and the reassurance of the daily grind. Thus, events like Newton always walked a thin line between cultural enrichment and moral turpitude, and we knew it, knew that every year the plug didn't get pulled was a small victory and an inexorable step toward the time when it would. Newton's ace card, though, was that despite being council-funded, its organisation lay in the hands of Chris Haynes, a bluesman. And blues guys don't deal in dithering and half measures. How often do you hear the phrase "no nonsense" when encountering the genre? All the time, exactly. A recent poll of musical tastes on the Starship Enterprise revealed that Picard's a classical buff, no surprise there. Geordie and Data are into Square Pusher, and Worf's into blues. Leather waistcoats, bike rallies, beer guts, and solid heavy bass bins. That's what little blues boys are made of. So at Newton, you were guaranteed a banging sound system, and the freedom to get pleasantly sozzled on the gut rot of your choice. And oh, how we did. On the other side of town, and the coin, was the St. Helens Show, Europe's biggest free show, or so we were told, and as little kids in the 70s who'd never been out of the Northwest, for a while we believed them. It fitted in nicely with the microcosmic universe we inhabited, the borders of which were defined by the distance a chopper bike could feasibly travel in one outing. Europe has now evidently got its act together, no doubt shamed into action by police dogs clamping their jaws into fleeing criminals' sofa-sized arms, Radio City tent, and the Red Devils parachute display team. But for these attractions, Pamplona's Running of the Bulls may never have existed. In the 80s, the St. Helens Show began putting live music on, and for a spell, it was in the hands of old art college buddy Dave Evans, who, despite having a precognitive knack of spotting the next big thing, was hampered at every turn by council red tape. Nevertheless, his music pavilion managed to feature an eclectic mix, such as Roy Harper, Censor, and Dr. Phibes, to name but 3, much to the appreciation of the culture-starved town's youth. The council typically looked upon his oasis of good vibes in a desert of bland parochial corporate shite less than favourably, and each year Dave had to endure ill-founded tales of drunkenness, violence and drug abuse from his less hip colleagues. His other concern was the larger concert hall, which featured bigger, more mainstream artists, and here his efforts were even less appreciated. The final straw occurred when, through sheer persistence and good luck, he managed to snare Delight at the height of their fame. After sweet-talking them into performing between national tour dates for a giveaway price, council officials kiboshed the deal, as they could get Jerry and the Pacemakers for the same fee. Not long after that, some paragon of wisdom decided that the beer tent was the root of all evil, and a total alcohol ban now reigns over this fun local spectacle. The good news is that, according to reliable sources, the double glazing tent continues to go from strength to strength. Yet for all the hurdles involved, we lapped up these live open-air events, revelling in what other parts of England probably took for granted and had grown up with. We were like kids in a third world village, whooping with glee at a Super 8 projection screen, while the rest of the world was yawning at Matrix Reloaded. There was an almost illicit pleasure in watching a band outdoors in St. Helens. You weren't supposed to enjoy yourself. Not like this, anyway. When people enjoyed themselves in St. Helens, someone got hurt. That was the natural order of things. But at Newton Festival, the lunatics took over the asylum, if only for a day, and it was always as uplifting as those brief strains of classical music drifting through Shawshank Prison Exercise Yard. Our shows there were always memorable, but the one in '95 was downright historical, as it was AF's last gig. There was no warning of his impending departure, and if any of the others knew about it, they kept quiet. But after the show, when he was casually throwing up backstage, he made his announcement, pausing only to fish some undigested narcotic out of the still warm vomit. I pressed him on the issue, and he simply said, "I can't do this anymore." That was it. It was as if the demon that had inhabited him all these years had simply decided to move on. One little Indian in alcoholic heaven had a bad pint, and then there were 7. Any attempts to get more information from AF simply resulted in the phrase, "I've had enough," and we all knew what he meant. I mean, how long do you keep feeding the slot machine before you cut your losses and walk away? Best to quit while you're behind. Go out on a low note. So, we were back to one vocalist. It would be just like 1986 again, except we were older and more battle-scarred, shorter of breath perhaps, but not out of the game yet by a long chalk. Even Bill's drum kit bore the soot and scorch marks of the dead fly inferno, but could still pound out a defiant rhythm. You have to hand it to us that one thing we were was persistent. So business continued, and through Billy and the Arthur Brown connection, a deal was struck with Voice Print, a small independent to handle our third album, The Hanged Man, on yet another label. The Hanged Man was unique in that it was the first of our albums to be recorded in a real studio, a place in Manchester called the Cutting Rooms. It had recently played host to Oasis and the Man United squad, and was a top-notch facility. But what really sold us on the place was Christophe, the French in-house engineer, who hit it off with Billy and Al immediately on their first visit. A deal was quickly struck, and again it was our money that financed the recording. I don't know if it's a testament to our dedication or our stupidity, but recording-wise, none of our albums were bankrolled by record companies. They must have rubbed their hands, each and every one of them, pinched themselves, no throwing money down the grid for months on end, as self-indulgent musicians lounged around a £500 a day studio, pissed and stoned, waiting for the muse to strike, more concerned with white powder on a glass table than reverb on a bass drum. Sprinkle some fairy dust on the bastard. Yeah, man, sounds great. 'Twas not the case with us men. It was more, can we leave it there, 'cause I think we're out of cash. But if Damien pays us for tomorrow's Reading gig, we'll be back on Monday. This Damien guy habitually shortchanged us when we played Reading. He always had some lame excuse for not handing over the full fee. He was a smug home counties crusty, playing at the gay rural troubadour until the trust fund kicked in. But he tried it on once too often, paid us 50 quid short, so Bill threatened to break his legs unless the balance arrived in the post within the week. Of course, no money came our way. A few months later I was down at Glastonbury with some mates, and there he was on a stall selling stripy candles and mandalas. I approached him saying, "Hi Damien, remember our little deal?" And he shit a brick, hastily raiding the takings box for our 50 notes, which he handed over much to the distaste of his fellow stall holder. "So, are you guys playing down here then?" he nervously inquired, after he'd stopped shaking a bit. "Nah," I replied with comically timed nonchalance. "There's only me here. Did I fail to mention that?" Not that the band got to see any of the money, mind. I soon spunked it away on veggie burgers and Class A's, but it was the principle. Christophe soon clicked into what we were trying to do. I don't know what other projects he had on the go, but he always seemed pleased to see us, and he gave it 100%. Various characters dropped in through the day, including one time Derek Ryder, father of Sean from the Happy Mondays. He was a ringer for his son, but with white swept-back hair, and cut an imposing figure. He spent an hour sat on the couch, nodding to the music and smiling as he tugged on a righteous spliff. "Oh yeah, the old lecky heads," he crooned, pretending he knew us well. Maybe he had heard of us, who knows, but I figured he was just being a nice gent and giving us a bit of a boost. Christophe was frequently perplexed by the sound that came out of us, and the confusion was often mutual. On one occasion, he interrupted the recording of P's vocal and began ranting about the peach. Nobody had a clue what he was on about. What bloody peach? He was, of course, in true Inspector Clouseau style, concerned about the pitch. All right, I guess you had to be there. Back in the live arena, we were adjusting to life without AF, and while on paper that should have meant a calmer approach to things, for some reason the reverse was true. Gigs had become mammoth drinking sessions that in the middle featured a bit of music being played, mostly badly. It all came to a head at a show in Bradford, the 1 in 12 club if memory serves. Bill was in a right state and could barely keep time, even falling off his stool once or twice, as the rest of us struggled to keep it together. It was baking hot, so Bill was decked out in just a pair of shorts, looking like some sweating, tattooed beast, and with every drop beat, Bun's face got stonier and angrier. When the gig finally limped to its undignified halt, Bill lurched to the front of the stage, whipped his shorts off and dived into the crowd starkers. People scattered in all directions to escape this drooling 6-foot naked drunk. Girls screamed and ran as Billy and his mate Big Dave struggled to capture and contain him. It was a performance to rival our last Bradford visit, when we were foolishly booked for a wine festival. Only that time it was Billy who couldn't keep his kecks on. He was so out of control that when we finally pulled up at Dead Fly, someone uprooted some nettles from the side of the road and thrust them between his legs, right on the family jewels. That calmed him down. He was known as Nettle Dicky for a while after that. Loading the gear outside, I came across Bun, sitting despondently on his base cab next to the bus. He looked a broken man, not so much angry anymore, but emotionally drained. He looked up and said, "I can't do this anymore, Bri." There was that line again. After 12 years of trying to change and control the chaos, he'd finally submitted and let rank stupidity walk away with the title. And there would be no coaxing him back in the ring after this one. The second little Indian, sick of drunken pricks, hung up his bass boots, and then there was 6. Chapter 40. The releases. Put a discography in, Bri. Stick it at the back with the index and the appendix. Yeah, like anyone's going to read one of a group they've never heard. It's called appendix for a reason. You can remove it with no visible consequences. And we've all got one, but whoever put it there forgot to tell us why. No, let's instead briefly discuss the releases in a non-furtive and adult fashion and leave it at that. So here we go. And first up is Drink Me, a cassette-only release from 1986, which opened with the sound of someone pouring a potion and quaffing it with ill-concealed relish. What followed was a collection of our current numbers at the time, recorded on 4-track, like Sgt. Pepper's, and in an effort to complete it in time, mixed in one non-stop 36-hour session. Bun, we salute you. Poisoned Electric Head, our first real album, eternally criticised for being too short, but its duration was determined by us wanting to include an LP format. On vinyl, sound quality begins to deteriorate above 43 minutes. We felt it was important to do so, if only for the thrill a 12-inch square image delivers when held in your hands for the first time. CDs, for all the frankly debatable superior sound quality, don't have quite the same impact. It was recorded in the Dead Fly, where it was tweaked and retweaked infinitesimally before we handed the master over to Pro Plus Records. Our Opus Maximus, 20th Century Man, President's Reply, included a lengthy rabble-rousing George Bush Sr. speech, over which legal implication concerns were voiced at the time, until Bun pointed out that the chances of anyone at the White House copying a listen were slimmer than Gary Glitter being asked to play a Children in Need fundraiser. History has proved him right. Unmistakably Rainbow Trout, a cassette-only release, and forgive me if I go into detail about this one, but some background is required. Al had a spell of living in London with a bunch of Sutton guys. They spent their days doing guttering and joinery, and their nights doing hallucinogenics. I think he enjoyed it in a way, but it inevitably spiralled into madness, so he returned up north just in time to catch one of our Peasley Cross gigs. He'd not seen or heard the band for a while and could see the progression with songs like Cap of Flies and Telebot. This led to him professing a desire to be our permanent sound man, something we badly needed, as so much was happening on stage that in-house engineers often struggled to make sense of it. Tim, the cabaret nudist, manned the helm whenever possible, but he was oversubscribed with his own gigs. So after some discussion, we began easing Al in, with Tim and Bun's guidance. There was some initial tension between Bun and Al over a professional approach. Bun favoured an analytical precision-led technique, whereas Al insisted on mixing under the influence of magic mushrooms. His psychedelic voyages in the Big Smoke had convinced him that in such a state the music opened up like a peacock's tail and could be tweaked at an almost molecular level. In short, like so many others before him, he'd found the key. Little known fact, the lyrics to number one hit The Key by Urban Cookie Collective were penned by St. Helens musician Hazy Pete, who was in the original lineup. He documented a mushroom trip with the lines, "I've got the key, I've got the secret." Typically, by the time it charted, he'd been eased out by the record company, and the pop kids buying it had no idea it was a pain to psilocybin. In the studio, though, it was Bun who translated the vision, and as Al's confidence and take on things increased, he wanted to try to capture his own interpretation of it. Thus, we took a selection of songs and re-recorded them with Al at the controls. He was trying to capture the live sound, something he became adept at interpreting, and something that singularly failed to translate to our studio work on the albums we released. The name originates from a misheard lyric in the song Creature Feature. Unmistakably, there's no doubt. Any reference to the Rainbow Trout Studios mentioned in Spinal Tap is purely coincidental, but a nice touch. Out of Order, our one and only official single, and something of an anthem at live gigs. Its brief appearance in the indie charts was an unexpected pleasure. I hear it in my dreams sometimes, if my head is trapped under the pillow, to recreate that rubber mask sensation. We must have worn gear like that more than the most depraved S&M freak could ever hope to in his sordid life. The Big I Am. Every band produces a standout album that will forever define them. And here, I'm not referring to the vagaries of opinion. That's merely the realm of individual taste. What I'm talking about is, in the absence of the artist's input, which album are they going to put on his headstone? Dark Side of the Moon or Atom Heart Mother? Park Life or Think Tank? It's that moment when all cylinders are firing, it all falls into place, and it will never be that perfect again. When people talk about a stunning return to form, which album are they referring to? I rest my case. For all its faults, The Big I Am was our defining moment. And from that album, this is the track Mr. Weasel.
It's beyond common sense. What is it to? Endorphins sending to wardrobe. Here's a weasel, but he's the one public love. Hello viewers, sending to wardrobe. Here's a weasel, but he's the one the public love. The public love. But isn't this just what they want? Another brand and cheap excuse. He's burning pound upon the race. The corporation make it squeal. Oh yeah, the seas violence. It's beyond common sense. To live with it. And our fans. Oh yeah, the seas violence. It's beyond common sense. What it is to live with it. And our fans. Where are you going to hide? Those crazy people are cutting up your history. You're going live tonight. And they hear your voice. They're gonna shout. Hey, Mr. Weasel, ain't you missing something? Hey, Mr. Weasel, ain't you short of something? Hey, Mr. Weasel, ain't you missing something? Something. Where are you going to hide? Those crazy people are cutting up your history. You're going live tonight. When they hear your voice, they're gonna shout. Hey, Mr. Weasel, ain't you missing something? Hey, Mr. Weasel, ain't you short of something? Hey, Mr. Weasel, ain't you missing something? Something.
The Hanged Man. The sound of a band falling apart. When everyone's pulling in different directions, you end up standing still, or worse, visiting places you're ill-equipped to be. Flirtations with rap metal rub shoulders with lazy jazz workouts and clumsy atmospherics. Lyrically in places it voices frustration and despair, but elsewhere it's mostly glib toilet humour and in-jokes, my fault. And the recently departed spectre of AF hangs over the whole thing like a radioactive cloud. The instrumental interludes that connect the whole thing work well enough, considering most of them were hastily cobbled together the day before the final mixdown. But all in all, it's one long identity crisis. Stir long and hard into its eyes, and you can see a wounded animal pleading to be put out of its misery. So that's it. Aside from the odd compilation track and a suitcase of live recordings that will surface one day. Not a huge canon of work, but enough to possibly be rediscovered by a sample-hungry, jaded future generation. You never know, eh? Chapter 41. Hope you enjoy our new direction. Losing a vocalist, especially when you've got two, is one thing, but losing a bassist is another. It was in my case anyway. The guy I'd been in bands with for 13 years had called it a day. My best friend on this earth. The guy who'd developed telepathic empathy with Bill, to the point where a sideways glance could convey everything from speed up to reverse bossa nova. 50% of the rhythm section gone, just like that. It was a severe blow, but any ability in the band had always been fairly evenly spread. We were the sum of our individual parts, as the almost total absence of solo careers now testifies. So things would just have to change. The chemical balance had altered, and something different would emerge from this new variant strain. Something more volatile, certainly, as we'd lost a major stabilising component. One thing was understood, though. No new elements would be added. No individual could possibly hope to gel with such a long-established symbiosis. They'd be consumed and absorbed immediately, like a failed kidney transplant by aggressive antibodies. So our only option was automation, in the form of a base sequencer to replicate Bun's parts. This restricted us severely in an improvisational sense, but also opened up hitherto unexplored possibilities. For instance, I'd never dabbled much with sequencers. In the framework of a live band, they threw up too many synchronization problems with the drummer. So rather than get embroiled in click tracks and headphones, I preferred playing by hand, even if the song required monotonous repetitive riffs, which quite frankly they often did. The best compliment I ever received after a gig was when a guy asked me what sequencer I was using. I was tempted to reply, "It's an HAND5. The tempo wanders a bit, but it's a doddle to program, and it wanks you off after the show." With Virtual Bun, we could suddenly incorporate rapid, complex sequences and extra percussion into the music. Well, just as soon as Bill invested in a pair of headphones. True to form, rather than buy any, he cadged some antiquated, enormous beige, leather-bound ones from God knows where. They made him look like a velour praying mantis. The days of buying him things from band funds were long gone, as he'd abused the privilege on countless occasions, even holding us to ransom once over a busted skin the day before a gig. Phil, on the other hand, had no qualms about putting his hand in his pocket for band gear. So this is how he came to be Virtual Bun's guardian and programmer, rather than myself. If truth be known, he'd been chomping at the bit since catching the Prodigy at Glastonbury the year before, when as a fairly low-bill filler, they'd torn the place apart. That mixture of technology and aggression was what we were now going to strive for, evidently. Bill was all for it, as he'd discovered Biohazard and all things kick-ass. But there was a slight hitch with Billy and P. They were on a mellow acoustic trip, due to their ongoing contact with the Gurdjieff movement and shared love of Roger Waters. And as for me, well, I'd recently done my first E, under duress and long after the cultural horse had bolted, I might add, but an epiphany nonetheless. And as sold band member to have crossed the dance curtain, I was evangelically preaching the gospel of the groove. My real E honeymoon would occur a year later, when I decamped to Ibiza for 4 months. But that's another story. Hell, it's another book. Al sat somewhere in the middle of all of us. His role of sound engineer embraced both raw power and the sublime allure of a well-placed acoustic strum. He'd also, from his vantage point at the mixing desk, observed a repetitive groove take hold of an audience, only for it to instantly mutate into jerky acrobatics, throwing would-be dancers into apoplexy. We all had the right idea, but we were all wrong. Like the blind men clinging onto different parts of the elephant, we were all convinced we had hold of a different animal. As I write this, a large-breasted girl in spectacles opposite is reading Émile Zola. Yes, I'm on the train again, and no, Toto, we're not in St. Helens anymore. New songs began to emerge, with the emphasis on big metal riffs and satanic vocal snarlings. The kind of painting by numbers aggression we'd so far managed to transcend. We'd always tried to unnerve the audience with a slow-building intensity instead, kind of like permafrost by magazine. You don't feel the altitude climbing until you look down and you're hit by a stomach-wrenching vertigo. Some of our old songs possessed the demeanour of Ben Kingsley's Don Logan character in Sexy Beast, but this new approach was more like the impotent pre-match growls of The Rock on WWF Wrestling. A new commercial concern had also begun to fester in our ranks, brought on by desperation and a lifetime of no cash. The logic stated that if the kids with the spending power were into metal, then that's what we had to play. Ditto for techno and rap, resulting in a confusing hybrid of styles. As with E-Culture, few of the band had any inclination toward rap music, so the task fell to me. Not that I was overqualified for the job, but I did own a Public Enemy album. Me and my mate Jack had also recently won the local Gong show, under the names DJ Easy Beatmaster Funk and Bronx Buffalo C, where we performed a dubious comedy take on the genre. Sample lyrics. Hey baby, you wanna dance? Turned on by my buffalo stance. Wait till you see what I got in my pants. It's longer than Lancelot's lance, it's bigger than the Empire State, it's stiffer than the pearly gates. It's hotter than a UV tube, and it's harder than a Rubik's Cube. But the moment for me, amongst all the second guessing and confusion, when I truly felt we'd lost the path we started out on, was when a couple of the boys voiced concern over the lyrical content of a rap I'd conceived for the song Concrete Box. It was basically a rant against brand name logos, and it went something like this.
So let's talk about individuality. It's a thing that I hold dear to me in my heart and my identity. It shapes it and it defines me, but these days we're all looking the same, walking around with some stupid brand name, promoting some fat cat corporate sports chain. Man, you must be insane. Am I gonna sell my soul to buy some trainers that cost a week's dough? Kiss my anus. Kappa kappa, you kappa comedian, you come and go like a fashion chameleon. Nike and LS don't mean shit to me. I'd rather have a nice E or some LSD, and if my body's naked then my mind is free to explore my own destiny.
My pals felt that it could alienate certain quarters of our audience, and we were in no position to do that, were we? I couldn't believe what I was hearing, but it fit right in with the recent MTV-style sentiments that had been flying about. Fuck me, guys. How did we go from a 10-minute George Bush war speech on the first album to fretting about teen spending demographics? You know, I didn't write this book to have a pop at any of you, but I couldn't let this one slide. Sorry. Anyway, I argued my case, but I was outvoted. The rap went. With these new songs, I sometimes got to escape from behind the keyboards and take centre stage. But ego-massaging as this was, it was yet another step taking us further away from where we needed to be. Hindsight and painful viewing of concert footage reveals that even in my wildest dreams I'm no frontman. A lanky streak of piss with a Mohican and no shirt on isn't going to fool anybody, least of all when it's a guy you could cover in tattoos and give an Uzi to, and old ladies would still smile at him. But off I went, imagining some mythical transformation had occurred. Dave Gahan aside, few nerdy guys metamorphosize into modern-day Jim Morrisons. Take that guy in the Stephen King film, Christine. Now we all know he was cool to begin with. They just made him look like a geek for the first half. Real life is not an American teen movie, and I'll leave you to decide whether that's a good thing or not. At any rate, at least I was enjoying the band again, and I don't suppose I was a bad rapper, just not quite Henry Rollins material. The gigs continued. Phil experimented with a variety of virtual buns, ever chasing that elusive sound, and we even ventured into the studio again, recording some songs that to this day have never seen the light of one, but like a rhinoceros with a tranquilizer dart in its arse, it was only a matter of time before we collapsed. What probably killed us, and Billy rightly prophesied it would, was the decision to give up touring until we had sorted ourselves out with a new set and a new sound. Once we stopped gigging, the doctors began considering turning the life support machine off, as they needed the bed. Someone then decided that songwriting could be done on computer, so why have the expense and hassle of a practice room? From there, it all gradually began fading away. No gigs, no rehearsals, slowly and without noticing, like in the final scene of a Hammer horror film, we began turning into stone. Until one day there was nothing left but a mound of dust that gently blew away in the breeze. And now, I'm an English teacher, Phil's a tattoo artist, Bun's a music technology teacher, AF's a family man, Bill's a roofer, P's a roofer, Billy's a shop fitter, Al's a live sound engineer, and Poisoned Electrick Head is the strangest goddamn Wizard of Oz drug-induced dream anybody ever had. But do you think it's all over? Haven't you seen enough horror movies to know otherwise? I've spent the last 5 years trying to nail the coffin lid down, but the dreams continue to scamper around my poisoned electric head. Just like head lice.
poisoned electric poisoned electric head poisoned electric head 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 poisoned electric